So we finished up the last video over the parts of the map, the title, the legend, the north arrow and compass, the scale bar, and then we're just going to finish up with the data source, and that's where we get this data from. So as we see, the whole map is of the European Union and where we have farmable or arable land. We see that there's a percentage difference between on the legend. We see that north is going up. We have the scale bar showing where everything or how far everything is apart, as well as the data source coming from the World Bank. Now, talking about scale and scale bars, we see that we're going to see three different maps right here showing the exact same information at different scales. So we see a global map, we see a continental map, and we see a state map, of Nebraska and Iowa, and a little bit of South Dakota. And we see that there's a scale relation between all this. Now, we have the small scale, and the easiest way to remember this is like the smaller the scale, the smaller amount of detail that the map can contain. So if it's a big picture of a lot of stuff, it can't have a lot of detail, so it's small scale. As we zoom into the state, the continent, city, county, it becomes larger and larger and larger. Now, finally, the last thing we're going to talk about are topographic maps. All right, so topographic maps are maps, as we see, is a flat piece of paper. We can't really show elevation very well. So what we use are topographic maps, which have lines that show the elevation from normally sea level. It goes from sea level and above. There are some maps, if it's below sea level, you'll have below sea level shown as well. But as we see in the top one, we have a mountain and it's flat. We see that the lines vary and they kind of come up to a point. And then if we were to take that and actually make it three-dimensional, we'll see the mountain itself rise up off of the paper. Why are topographic maps useful? Topographic profiles. So kind of like a drafter, they can take these lines of elevation, kind of point them on a plot, and then they can just draw the mountain itself, kind of connecting the dots as the elevation goes up. One of the pieces of your worksheet is actually you drawing a topographic relief of your map your topographic map that you're going to draw. And topographic maps show elevation well. So how do they show elevation? We see that they have lines. These lines are called something. They're called contour lines, all right? So we have all of the lines on there are called contour lines. Then we have the thicker ones that are the index contour lines. And these index contour lines kind of show us the main elevation in, normally it's like the big unit contour interval measurements, like at 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet. They'll actually have that listed at the bottom of the map. And then you can see those and you can figure out the direction that the hill or the mountain or the valley is going by these index contour lines. And then at the bottom of the map, we also see that there's a contour interval. And the contour interval is the distance in elevation between each line. So each line on this map is 100 meters. So between the elevation at the 2,200 meter, the line right next to it as it's going up is 2,300, 2,400, 2,000, and so on and so forth. All right. Here's a good picture of a map in New York of Mount Marcy at this park, and where the person is sitting and took this picture is at the top of Mount Marcy. And as we see, Mount Marcy on this map is in the center of it, and that's what we see looking out. All right, we can kind of see the valley right here and then the valley on the opposite side. And as we also can tell, so like these closer contour interval lines, as they get closer and closer together, the steepness of the hills starts to increase, or if they get farther apart, it's not as steep. All right, are there any questions? All right, so I've used maps a lot in my time and in my profession and in my personal life. I like to camp, I like to hike every now and then, and I use maps to see where I'm going and kind of like pinpoint how I'm going to get there. Sometimes taking the road is a little bit easier. Sometimes making your own trail is a little bit easier. I'll have maps that I've collected over the various times that I've been places, and you can look at these maps and touch them, and see the differences between certain areas. I think I've got one of Hawaii, one in South Dakota. I have a Japanese map that's actually in Japanese, but you can still, even though you can't read Japanese, you can still see the elevation and the information that's being relayed to the reader or the user of the map. You have till the end of the class to work on your worksheet. If you can't get it all done, turn it in by tomorrow or the next time we have class. And the next time we have class, we'll actually be using the maps to kind of figure out like what we're seeing and where certain things are, and then how to get from point A to point B.